What's up, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the weekly Sunday show where we'll share some news and answer your questions, of course. My name's Chris Grant, and to my right is the onomata poetic Chris Rasick. Now, for those of you who may be new here, our job is to try to make your life a little bit easier as a seller. Maybe you've got questions about online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, whatever it is, we're going to try to help. We're going to answer your questions about Keepa. We're going to share some news, some crazy Amazon stories if those exist. So they do. And of course, take every single question you can throw at us. Chris, happy Masters Sunday and happy annual reminder that neither one of us got chosen in the Masters lottery again.
Yeah, I don't believe it's a real thing. You'd think sheer probability, somebody we know would have hit by now. But yeah, this is probably this is way up there as far as like favorite Sundays. I do love Masters Sunday. So yeah, that was going to be my greeting to you. I'm glad you beat me to it. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Luke, what's the Masters? Oh, Luke.
Luke. Come on, man. Go sports.
Rory McIlroy has got an opportunity of a lifetime. 5 other players, Ben Hogan, the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods. I'm blanking on the other 2 off the top of my head.
Gary Player, I think was one.
Gary Player, yes. Those guys
Arnold
have
Palmer?
won. It could. I think it is Arnold Palmer. That sounds right.
Or no, I think Palmer might have been missing one.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know.
That is of course the guys who have won the modern championships. PGA Championship, U.S. Open, Masters, and British Open. Yeah. Now, I was doing a little bit of reading because I had to go down this rabbit hole. There is one other person who technically has this same kind of feather in their cap, if you will, but it was back in 1930. And he actually did it all in 1 year. Now, I know that like the Masters didn't exist or something didn't exist back when he was doing it, but whatever the similar tournaments were, he won all 4 of them in the same year.
Interesting. Was that Bobby Jones?
It was Bobby Jones. Yeah.
Bobby Jones. I believe Bobby Jones helped design Augusta. I think he had a hand in, or maybe unless I'm thinking about another course. But yeah,
interesting.
This is a great tournament. Luke, you're missing out. But thank you for always saying the quiet part out loud. Chris, what's the shirt check? What it looks like you got Portland Trailblazer font going on. What is that?
This is thankfully we've got lots of outlets around here. This is Ralph Lauren's Team USA shirt.
Oh, okay. Nice. I like it.
Yeah. All right, let's dive in. But of course, before we dive in, there's always an ad spot. And I always try to team these ad spots up with a little bit of learning as well. But before Michael Bloomberg was the billionaire media mogul that he was just another guy who got laid off from Salomon Brothers. But then he created the Bloomberg Terminal, which a lot of us probably don't know what it is, but it is this terminal that's used in a lot of the trading companies, things like that. And it's the reason that he is so stinking filthy rich. But what he realized is that every Wall Street firm was actually paying for 5 separate systems to track stocks, news, analysis, and financials. So he bundled it all into one dashboard, one subscription, one cost. And that decision made him one of the top 100 richest men alive. And Amazon sellers, they kind of have their Bloomberg moment right now. And with Seller 365, you get access to tools like tactical arbitrage, inventory lab with their accounting, Scout IQ, Scoutify, Feedback Wiz email alerts and profits, Smart Repricer, and more, all in one terminal, one bundle. And it starts at just $69 a month. So if you're interested, you can get a free trial over at getseller365.com. That's getseller365.com. And log into the dashboard you can use to basically run your entire Amazon business.
Yeah, TA
All right.
2.0 coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's I just got access to it. So I'm going to be messing around with that here pretty soon. I'm excited. So we've got a few pieces of news. And some of them are a little heavy, so I apologize. It is a good Sunday, even if Bryson did take the lead here. Sorry, I've got the stats up in one of the screens. I probably should turn it off. But the first piece of news is restock limits are back. This is something that kind of really caught fire at the end of last week, but Amazon restock limits are back in 2025. Now, if you've been around for a while, this feels familiar because it's given COVID era vibes. Amazon is once again restricting how many units you can send into FBA, but this time, even though they're not announcing it, but this time it's not just everything. All right. So it's kind of on an ASIN by ASIN basis. And it hasn't officially been announced. Like there's nothing in your news yet about it, at least that I've seen. But around April the 8th, sellers started getting slapped with some vague error messages like this product exceeds the allowed quantity. You already have high days of supply. The good news is, sort of, again, these limits don't seem to be account wide. They're ASIN specific, meaning your ability to restock a product now seems to depend on the velocity at which it sells and at which you sell. Now, at first, it even seemed that it would depend on what other sellers were doing, how their velocity was. But that's been tamped back. Okay. Because of course that was greeted with jeers and boos and hisses from the Amazon crowd because of the ease in which that could be manipulated. If you can, if you know that it sells about 300 a month, why wouldn't one big seller try to send in 200 or 250 or 300 if possible and keep other sellers off the listing? Fortunately, Amazon shared with Ryan Yapel, who's a big wholesale seller out of that state up north, that that's not the case, and restock limits is only based on your own sales velocity. But another issue is that Amazon systems seem to be giving conflicting messages. It seems a product can be flagged as low stock and overstocked simultaneously, kind of like arguing with your GPS that says you're both at your destination and still 3 miles away. But according to James over at Marketplace Prep, some of the issues with the way Amazon figures these numbers out is the days of supply. Okay, that's one metric they're using. Well, it actually lags behind actual sales. So it can be difficult to figure out that number correctly. Lead times don't seem to be considered into the equations. So you might be told to send in 700 plus units in 6 days, only to find that you're still blocked when that day comes. And that's kind of the issue that we're seeing, at least here in this early stage. And don't expect to be able to use Amazon warehousing and distribution, or AWD, which is probably not something a lot of arbitrage sellers are using anyway, but that's not going to be something to bail you out. Transfers from AWD to FBA also seem to be getting rejected. Now, here's why all of this matters. You might be completely blocked from restocking, even if you're out of inventory. Amazon says it's not because someone else oversent their inventory, so we're not really sure why that may be happening, but it does seem to be happening, at least so far. So chances are you're going to need to be more surgical with your inventory. Now, again, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too hard for being ahead of the curve, but we have preached an inch deep and a mile wide for arbitrage sellers for longer than anyone that I can think of. And my opinion is that this really still is the cure, not only to this issue, but also several of the other issues that sellers have been facing recently. Um, and it's probably going to be more difficult going forward if they keep this in place to figure out inventory levels for seasonal spikes. This may make becoming an MFer or using an MFing prep center even more attractive in the future, depending on how this plays out. And I say that because we don't know. Amazon could change direction tomorrow if they chose to. But a good thing to know is that if you're blocked from sending in a certain amount of inventory, there is an appeals process. I mean, but again, it's appealing to Amazon. So take that, for what it's worth. Now, because this has not been formally announced from Amazon and it's only been replied to via emails, and of course, seller support tweeted out, they must have tweeted out the same tweet like 50 times. And they just tweeted out an FAQ page. So this situation does seem fluid, still trying to get more information. And of course, we're going to share more as we know it. But just another one of those hiccups on the path.
Yeah, nothing like Amazon doing live beta testing, just on the fly.
Right.
Certainly, the optics are bad on this one, as per Amazon unstated policy. But the one thing I can guarantee you is, as this becomes more well known and more sellers experience it, I can guarantee you that sellers will completely overreact. That's the one constant in this space. Yeah, you know what? I can't think of. I mean, with most things with Amazon, I'm not going to get fired up about it. A lot of the times with stuff like this, there's some hiccups initially, and then the process gets smoothed over. It is. I only half jokingly said that they beta test live. Because they do seem to adjust as things go, as it's put into practice, and as they get. Hopefully, it's based on feedback from sellers. So, not much to get fired up about right now. Timing wise, you can't help but project this out to Q4. The nice thing, and yeah, Luke even mentions Q4 in the comments. Timing wise, if this is some sort of policy that is important to them, this is a good time to put it out. Middle of Q4 for big time releases didn't go over well. So hopefully they're learning from that perspective. But yeah, you're right. That was the first thing I thought of was, you don't experience this problem when you are coming into stock on an ASIN that you don't have in your catalog already. So, yeah, you already made the point, which is what I was going to make as well, with that, going wide is kind of immune to this problem right now. So,
yeah,
a wait and see kind of thing. I do believe, any troubles, any roadblocks or obstacles that this puts into place initially, I'm willing to bet gets smoothed over.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. No point in being a pessimist. Might as well be as optimistic as we possibly can. And I mean, worst case scenario, like if that's what we want to think about, worst case scenario is the algorithm takes a little change back to COVID times, and people who are merchant fulfilling or thinking about merchant fulfilling get another little boost, which nobody seems to be upset when that happens. Well, not everybody, but most people. So I don't know. Again, inch deep, mile wide. That's the way to go. It's just I know people don't like it because it seems more difficult to manage such a broad catalog. Uh, and I mean, we have preached this since before it was popular. I see it gaining steam. Um, and yeah, I really think it's kind of the cure all.
Yeah, it's tough to find any downsides, right?
Right. um, Next piece of news is going to be a complete 180. Amazon success is still there. It just takes time, and I've got the receipts for it. According to new research from Marketplace Pulse, Amazon's top 10,000 sellers are increasingly made up of longtime veterans. Over 60% of them registered before 2019. Nearly 30% go back to before 2016. Sellers from 2016 to 2018 make up another 20%. And yet, about 10% of the top 10,000 sellers joined in just the last 2 years, which should hopefully prove that the door is still open for new blood. Now, despite thousands of new sellers joining Amazon daily, the attrition is pretty brutal. Less than 8% of pre 2019 registrants are still active. For 2023 accounts, 70% are already gone. So the question is, of course, well, why? Well, Amazon's rising take rate, fees have gone up, of course. There's increasing ad and fulfillment rates for people who decide to run ads. There's external chaos, there's inflation, tariffs, pandemic fallout, whatever anybody wants to blame their business failure on. But saying all of this, I want to offer a little bit of a silver lining to this seemingly dark cloud. In my opinion, Amazon is still one of the best opportunities for someone who wants to start a business. The number of sellers who fail on Amazon is actually in line with small business ownership in the US. Around 65% of small businesses end up failing. And you have to remember that those numbers are taken from places like the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And they're really talking to people who made a much more concerted effort to get started rather than treating something like a side hustle. They're talking to people who rented office space for a year, purchased machinery, purchased equipment. Those are the kind of folks that they're talking. Opened a restaurant. Those are the kind of folks they're talking to, not people who are starting affiliate marketing on the side or anything like that. Okay, not that affiliate marketing is bad. I love it. But the average startup cost, here's some of the other things. The average startup cost for a small business in the US ranges between $10,000 and $50,000. Amazon sellers, on the other hand, can have a full business up and running with fixed costs of about $195 a month. That includes a seller account, a Keepa account, a profit calculator, shipping and inventory software, sourcing software, and even insurance in most cases, depending on what you sell. The average gross revenue of a non-employer business in the US, so just the owner, no employees, is between $44,000 and $49,000 a year. Now, I want to stop there for a moment because I want you to make sure that you heard me say that is gross revenue. That's top line revenue. Okay. So everyone who, when you share a screenshot of your sales and someone says, yeah, but what did you actually make? Okay, they're not saying that to people who open up a retail location or run a lawn mowing business. Okay. The average gross revenue for a 1 to 4 employee small business in the US is $387,000 top line. Both of these figures are bad months, or in some cases, a bad week in top line revenue for some of the sellers we've had on the podcast. Now, here's a reason to keep going when it feels tough. All right. Over half of the GMV That's gross merchandise volume for those of you in Ann Arbor. Over half of the GMV on Amazon comes from sellers with 5+ years under their belt. And that's a big signal. Okay. Persistence produces progress. You play an infinite game until you have the skill, the know how, and the means to create a business that affords you the lifestyle that you want. So, but why does all this matter? Well, if you're new, you're not locked out. Okay. But the bar is higher than it once was. If I only knew what I knew when I started on Amazon, I would likely tap out eventually. Uh, well, maybe not. I don't know, but it has gotten a lot more difficult. Okay, you need to learn faster. You need to execute sharper than you had to in the past. But that's been made easier with the amount of information that's available, with the type of tools that are available to us. And so, in my opinion, this data kind of reinforces that success on Amazon is more compounding than it is viral. If you're here for the long haul, you're probably playing the right game. So, Chris, my question to you is, how do we cut through all the noise of the Lambos and broccoli haircuts to help people understand what actually allows for longevity and growth on Amazon?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure that there's anything that we don't already try to do. You know, um, we stress, the practices. I mean, I like to think that we give sound advice. We're never blowing smoke. Even when people think we're apologizing for Amazon, we're really just being realistic about it and trying to figure out why something exists. It's none of it is predicated upon a theory that this is easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. We stress networking. It's interesting. Networking, if anything else, even if it doesn't help you grow in your own business, it does a very good job teaching you the landscape of your competitors. Probably one of the an underrated aspect of networking is learning how other people were taught. You kind of tend to put the blinders on, and you entered the space through whatever article or YouTube video, or somebody shared something, and it started with one person trying to teach, or whether that be somebody that said, hey, listen to this, or read this, or follow this. You kind of have your path, and let's be honest that there's bad advice out there. So networking kind of gives you in a sense, it's going wide with your own education. It's kind of expanding beyond your own echo chamber, to kind of get a more well-rounded view of what sellers do and the practices that they put in place with their own stores, and that's valuable. It's I want to go back to those numbers though, because you said even 2023, the count started in 2023, which is just a tick over a year old, 2 years old at the max. 70% of those are gone. However, you gave 3 points as to the reasons why. The first two was Amazon's rising take rate, and the second one was increasing ad and fulfillment fees. Now, I would argue that people who started in 2023, those reasons don't necessarily apply. There's been minimal increases in fees, minimal increases in ad and fulfillment fees to somebody who started in 2023. That's
true.
They haven't been around long enough to be jaded by increases in Amazon's take rate. So for 70% of them to be gone, that's very interesting. When what you said, there's only 8% of pre 2019 sellers still in the game, so that's a 92% rate. but we're only dropping to 70% when you started in 2023. So that tells me people are getting bad advice, and I've alluded to it before on multiple shows that I think selling on Amazon is packaged as a side hustle, or
Hmm.
it's a plug and play side hustle for people, and I think that's the major mistake. Even more so than renting the Lamborghini and trying to pretend like you're more successful than you really are. I think people are getting caught in by the fact that this is some sort of turnkey business, and
Hmm.
when in actuality, it's an inventory based business, so all of the admin, and I'm not telling anybody something they don't already know, but it's an inventory base. So you have to be good at forecasting, you have to be good at sourcing. This is by far uh, passive. It's residual. I heard Nate McAllister say that years ago, and I thought it was the perfect explanation for Amazon. You front load the work, and then the income is a residual after that. But then then that kind of repeats in a cycle. There are batches of hard work often that need to be done in this business. Um, so I think it's mostly how it's presented to people. I think that it kind of hit the mainstream. And anytime something goes mainstream, there's a lot of trending stuff, where people say, especially in the founders and startup world, to where if you've heard of it, it's already too late. There's that concept. Um, so once it goes mainstream, you're going to have people deciding to make some money off of teaching how to do it, regardless of whether they're successful or not. Everyone's looking for that internet money lottery ticket. So you're going to have some unqualified people give teaching Amazon FBA a go. So,
Hmm.
and I think that's evidence of that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, those numbers are really really interesting. And we should mention, if you don't follow Marketplace Pulse, they only publish articles. Is it once a week, right?
It's I think it's about once a week, but they've also come out with like a new email format which seems to offer a little bit more to it. I've only seen one email so far, but I really liked it.
Yeah. So if anybody out there, if you're not subscribed to Marketplace Pulse, it's very thorough. It's very thoughtful research. It's well worth your time. Everybody out there, if you're not already, you should check it out. So
Yeah, yeah. The guy who writes most of the stuff does a fantastic job. You know,
yeah.
I want to pull something out of what you said that I thought maybe a lot smarter um
You're
than
used to
maybe
hearing
anybody
me say.
caught on. No, no, definitely not. No, you said this is a lot of people treat this like a side hustle.
Mhm.
And I think there's a big difference between a side hustle and a business on the side. And maybe that's the way that it needs to be positioned these days. Like, because sure,
Mhm.
there was a time when this could be a side hustle. You could go and spend your Saturday afternoon doing some retail arbitrage and send it to Amazon and let it sell, and it's no big deal. But that's what eBay is for now. That is what driving Uber Eats is for. Like those are side hustles. But Amazon, it's a business that you can do on the side of your regular job, and then use it to retire if you want to, or whatever else you want to use it for. And maybe that's the way that it should be positioned from now on.
Yeah, because you need legitimate business skills, and
Hmm.
and if you don't believe me, if anybody's been in the business for a while, think about everything you've learned simply by having to do certain things, just everything that's required of an Amazon seller. You can't help but get a business education, Um, so that's a significant point. It's
Hmm.
like you mentioned mowing lawns or walking dogs, around the neighborhood or something like that. Those are essentially mindless tasks. A lot of what we do, requires at least a bit of business acumen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. All right, let's wrap up this with this week's business principle. All right, so I want to start this week's business principle by asking a question. Are you spending 2 hours trying to fix a $10 mistake? How often are you doing that while ignoring a $100 or even a $1,000 opportunity that might be sitting in your old leads lists or inside your Keepa product finder? And that takes us into today's mental model, which is today we're going to talk about a mental model that'll hopefully get you and me to rethink how we spend our time in our business. And it's called the principle of proportionality. All right. And most sellers, myself included, are violating this principle every single day. So, what is the principle of proportionality? Well, it comes from the world of decision science. It's the idea that the effort that you put into something should be proportional to the value of that thing. So, in other words, don't spend 5 hours chasing $5 and definitely don't spend 90% of your day on something that only moves the needle 10%. For arbitrage sellers, that may mean rethinking how much time you're spending on admin, how much time you're spending on lower margin opportunities, how much time you're spending on manual tasks that can be automated, or building fancy spreadsheets that you get built and then never use again in your life. For example, if you're still manually repricing 200 SKUs, you're not frugal, you're inefficient. Repricing is
Corey.
repricing is about velocity, not necessarily control. Okay. You should let a tool like Smart Repricer or Aura to handle the 80%. And then you come in for the high margin outliers or the weird listings that maybe need a little bit more nuance than you're comfortable with handing to a software. You got to remember, and this is just one example. I could have chosen a dozen, but and sellers often hit a wall because they're drowning in a lot of low value decisions. Should I bring my price down a penny or raise it 3 pennies? That is a low value decision in the grand scheme of things. Should I ship this item from a prep center or from home because I could save 30 cents on it? Dude, stop. Okay. If you want to grow your Amazon business, it's not necessarily about doing more things. It's about doing the right things in proportion to how much they move the needle. You need to audit your time. You need to filter your to do list and then go all in on the 20% of tasks that generate 80% of your results. And here's an easy way to build out this framework in your mind. The question you can ask yourself to help you with this framework is, if you had to cut 50% of your workload tomorrow, what would you stop doing first? And that's as simple as it gets. All right. So, Chris, I guess maybe we should be a little vulnerable here. What's the dumbest thing you've spent way too much time on in your Amazon business?
Oh, the dumbest thing I've spent too much time on. Huh. There's so many to choose from. Um, hmm. I certainly waited too long to get a repricer. That's probably the most obvious thing. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I love. It calms my brain when I can classify something that was a concept that was kind of lingering in my head already. Because
Mhm.
this is what we've talked about this for years now. Anytime we've told people, where you need to designate what your time is worth, any of those mentions that we talk about, that's essentially what this is. The principle of proportionality. We've talked about it when we're deciding what to outsource. Um, it's based on the value of your time. You should be generating X number of dollars per hour, and if the task that you're piddling with is less than that, you need to outsource it, and have somebody else do it. That's the main concept of outsourcing evaluation that we've talked about, and numerous people have talked about. And you can even drill down further. I'll never miss an opportunity to pick on replens. How much time are you wasting trying to determine if the product is a replen or not? Like if you're sitting there and it's the product is profitable, but then you go on and you keep going with your analysis to figure out if you're going to be able to buy it more than once. It should have been in your cart. You should have been checked out, and you should have been on to the next one. You'll figure out whether it's replens or whether it's replenishable or not after that first buy is done, after you've done your test buy and you evaluate your own data. That's an effort right there, to where if, you're going to make $100 on 10 units or whatever that you bought, you could have had another $100 in profit in the time that you took trying to figure out this, the unicorn that is replens. And for the people in Ann Arbor, that means it's imaginary. It's just a marketing term. It's a bunch of BS. So I loved it. It calms my head having a nice little title for something like that. So
yeah, Corey, you're
interesting.
Absolutely right. Everything pretty much is a replenishing. Yes, everything is a possible replenishable item in your Amazon business. Maybe, and see, here's the thing is when people sell replens, this is why I don't have a replens course. Like it would be an easy sell, but it's not helpful because everything is a replen. Okay, as long as it's being made, whether it's a replenishable because of a sales cycle or it's a replenishable because of the market factors, same demand, lower supply, increased price, very easily something that you could replenish that maybe you couldn't buy 30 days ago. So yeah. All right. Let's answer your guys' questions. And I'm going to answer the first one from Instagram. So this is from Zach Got Bands. And it says, it's my first time doing Amazon FBA. How do I find a good product? So Zach, that's a tough question to answer in a Q&A format. But here's kind of the essentials. Okay. Number one, you need to figure out how to lower your cost of goods as much as you legally can. All right. So start with a sale, start with a discount gift card, start with a coupon code, anyway, and stack any of those that you possibly can on top of each other. If you could do a sale with an additional coupon code and get a discount gift card on top of that, fantastic. Throw a little cash back as a little cherry on top, and you're golden. Okay. So that's one way to get started. The other way to get started is storefront stock. Go out there, find some storefronts that look like what you want to do, and find those products using Google, and then do the same thing over again. All right. Discount gift cards. Can I find a coupon code? Is there a sale on that particular source for the item? And then figure out if it's profitable. Okay. And then there's three big questions you need to answer. It's, can I sell it? Is it profitable? And does it sell? Those are the three things that you need to know. Does it sell? You'll find out with Keepa and doing your own tests. Buy 5 to 10 units to send in. Can I sell it? Amazon lets you know, or you can use a tool like RevSeller. Happens to be my favorite. And is it profitable? Again, a profit calculator. Amazon's got one for free. But again, I like RevSeller. It's a whole heck of a lot easier than going to the Amazon seller calculator. Now, here's what I would suggest, because you sound fairly new. We've got some videos out on YouTube. One of them is about lowering your cost of goods go watch that podcast episode. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's probably, honestly, it's probably one of the most useful episodes that we've ever put out. And then go watch go just stream through our 75 or 80 other episodes and see what sticks out to you. Watch those as well. Maybe throw in an interview here and there from some people who are already successful to get the juices flowing, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, it's I can't stress this enough, and my opinion gets stronger the more time that goes on, especially when you're new. Reverse sourcing is so helpful for newer sellers, and storefront stocking is so easy. And the guys were talking. I saw in the comment section there was a little back and forth about Rev Seller. They were talking about the mobile app that they have now. Rev Seller, the updates that they have, and Seller Amp is a very close comparison. I just happen to use Rev Seller. It's my eyes are used to looking at it, so I'm very efficient with it. But if you think about the concept of reverse sourcing, it really narrows your the required line of sight, right? So if you're going, think about, if you go in and they say, a lot of RA advice is you go into Walmart, go into an aisle and scan every single product on the shelf, right? And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to match that up with the Amazon catalog, and you're trying to find it being sold on Amazon at a higher price with a margin so that you can make some profit. Reverse sourcing, the products are already on the Amazon catalog, right? So from there, you're just trying to find where you can source it profitably, and that closes things in a little bit. And in this case, the walls closing in is a good thing, because you don't have to search however many products on Amazon to try to find it. You simply have to find the store, and things with Google search and keywords and UPCs and all this stuff makes it a heck of a lot easier, depending on the quality of the listing, of course. But and a good example, take the interview with Chris Beam. It was the first time that I made a mental note of she's not a fan of reverse sourcing, right? And at first I was kind of like, how dare you, but but her explanation is she has her process. She's a whiz at tactical arbitrage, and she has places to go, and she has a regimen, and she has a procedure that she follows to find as much inventory. She sells millions, so she has it down. So in that case, okay, and I calm down, I let go of my pearls at that point. But for somebody, especially the new seller, to storefront stock, especially that form of reverse sourcing, you're already getting proof of concept. These storefronts, if you find a storefront that has a catalog that you're jealous of, or that you like, it's like, man, these guys are selling a bunch of stuff that I want to sell too. You basically have the blueprint. Sure, you may find some stuff that you might have missed a sale or something like that, but you'll learn where they're getting their stuff, and if it's a store that keeps coming up in the Google shopping results, or, the Google page, when you reverse source it, make a mental note, and you'll find out it doesn't take much. You do it enough times and you'll start connecting the dots. Okay, these people are sourcing heavily from this store. I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to start to learn those sales schedules. There's a huge education in storefront stocking for the new seller.
And I'll tell you, Zach, one of the other things too is just because something is not profitable right now does not mean that you should throw it away, never to look at it again. Let's say, for example, that you source, and let's say that you go through 100 products. Well, I would say that maybe you're going to have a 2 to 3% hit rate. All right, 2 to 3 of those 100 are going to be profitable, be something you can sell, things like that. But I'll bet that another 20% of those should actually be things that you are saving to a close but no cigar type of spreadsheet, where, hey, you know what? if this was just if this was discounted by another 10%, this would be good. If the price would recover on this, maybe $5, I would actually sell this. I really just need an extra little discount or a buy two get one free sale to make this work. And then you save that to a spreadsheet. You set up a Keepa alert for the price to go back up, and then you got places to check. And you can say, okay, well, I know that Walgreens runs this same sale every 6 to 8 weeks, so I'll keep an eye out for it. And that will make you that'll make you going back to your old leads that weren't quite there and taking another swing at them later on down the road. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions, kind of the same thing. So Peyton Dean, if you're still here, I'm going to answer your question as your more was the statement, but I'm going to answer DJ Crazy Jimmy's question here. So I've got over 100+ pairs of shoes of Nike at Amazon. I got regated with a request of 100 units or Amazon returns inventory. Where can I order 100 units to ungate Nike? So, DJ Crazy Jimmy, yes, you can order from soccer.com. However, you need to go back and reread that email. Okay. Because I will almost guarantee that Amazon is asking you for invoices that you already have. They want to know that you have purchased things in the past. And you say that Nike's 98% of your business, you should easily have these things available to you. Okay. So just gather some of your invoices, receipts, shipping confirmation, delivery confirmation, and anything else, and send that off to Amazon to keep from getting gated. This is what's known as a soft gate. So Amazon just is trying to be double and triple sure that no counterfeit goods and no stolen goods are getting into the supply chain, which kind of the signal to me is that maybe Nike is really talking to the folks over at Amazon and really pushing hard to make sure that they keep counterfeit and stolen goods off the platform. Because we've had lots of Nikes pulled up in Section 3s. We've had Nike gating, soft gating. This will be like the third time now in a year. So like Amazon seems to be very obvious about what they're doing with Nike. It doesn't seem to me that Nike's going first party. Nike failed at their direct to consumer, and Nike failed when they sold first party to Amazon already. I think my personal opinion is they're going to be trying to bring back their brand by fixing their marketing, which honestly kind of sucks these days. It's not the Jordan era marketing anymore. And they're probably going to be doubling down on wholesale to brick and mortar outlets and things like that after they did a very big pullback when they went D2C. So I don't think that we're going to have this whole, you can't sell the current versions of Nike on Amazon anymore. Now that I've said that, I want to bring up the other point of something you said. What else should I do or learn from this? Nike is 98% of my business. You've got to change that immediately. Okay. Because even though I just said all of that and I think Nike is pretty safe, well, I cannot guarantee that because I'm not Andy Jassy or Jeff Bezos. So, like, in my opinion, one brand should be no more than 5%, 10% worst case scenario of your total inventory. Like that is way too much in one particular brand for anything to happen,
Yeah, you need to. Yeah, I mean, you need to mitigate the risk by getting that number down by a huge factor. I thought I was missing something there because he said he had 100 units in at Amazon. It's like you've already got the 100. You have any receipts, because they let you go back 180 days on the invoice, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So out of those 100 that are at Amazon right now, the only thing that disqualifies them is if you bought them more than 180 days ago, and in that case, you should probably be liquidating stuff, because you're taking on long-term storage fees that you don't need to be paying, especially on a brand like Nike that's as popular as it is.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, I think people are missing that point. Is anything you've bought, a lot of people, if people are getting regated in Nike, and the email that they receive is asking for 100 units. I mean, if you're active, I mean, unless you're just dabbling in Nike, a lot of these people already have the 100 that they need.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, anybody who is making a post like that, like, yeah, you've got the 100 you already need. It shouldn't be any problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Is it 3-shot lead for Rory? Did I see that right?
Yeah, 3-shot lead for Rory right now. He's even through 5 holes.
Let's see, now he gets to break our heart twice in the same round.
Right? Yeah, man, he better hold it together after the turn. No brat, no beer at the turn for Rory today. Okay, Steven, is there a way I can use to take items from a site and transfer them to, like, say, let's say Keepa, so I can cross-reference with my selling criteria? Um, Not really with Keepa. That is not what Keepa is for. However, what you're looking to do is kind of what tactical arbitrage does. You're looking to, source a website and then have it automatically filter like what you would actually want to sell and things like that. That's what tactical arbitrage does. There's 450 or 500 sites in the US that are automatically built in. If you wanted to add more to that, you could use something like Tactical Expander, which will scrape sites for you, and you can upload those with that data. I actually just used that on a site not too long ago that's not uh, native to uh, native to tactical arbitrage. Actually, it's where leads for my Q2 group came from. I think a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. Um, that would probably be the best way to do it. Oh, and the other thing here is Steven doesn't want to jump back and forth between the site and seller amp. So here's the deal. You're using seller amp wrong if you're having to jump back and forth. Okay. Both seller amp and rev seller have the ability for you to source right on the actual product page at a retailer's website. All you've got to do is highlight the title, right click, and then click on the seller amp button. I believe Seller Amp also, matter of fact, let me pull up a retail website. Um, Here we go. Uh, Seller Amp also has the AI image search available. So you can not only source by title, but you could actually source by an AI image search as well. I have not used that very much, so I can't tell you whether it's any good or not. But I use the title search both within Seller Amp and Rev Seller regularly, and it's fantastic. And you stay right on the actual source page. No need to keep Amazon open at all.
Yep, just opens up right in the just have it open up in a sidebar, and man, you can cruise through sales so fast.
Yeah, no kidding. Hassan, my smart repricer is not working. No products are enabled. Where can I get help? I have the 3 Colts sub. Easiest place to get help is probably going to be the Facebook group. Now, I don't know if they have a Facebook group for smart repricer by itself. Let me see here. Smart repricer. Yeah, they do have. They have a group called Smart Repricer by 3 Colts. There's only 291 members in the actual group. 292 now that I hit request. So I would join there, and that's probably going to be where you're going to get the fastest support. If you don't get help there, ask inside the Tactical Arbitrage group or the Inventory Lab group, and you'll get faster support in one of those groups.
Didn't they start a Seller 365 Facebook group too?
Yes, there is a Seller 365 Facebook group. Yeah. That would be another place. Groups. Maybe that was a page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They probably should put it all in one place, but I could understand that could get a little difficult if you've got, support for all those different products there.
Yeah, true.
I'm learning to use Smart Repricer. It's my first experience with a repricer. Any tips for me? Make sure that you're not setting it to drop below the buy box by a penny. That's going to be the biggest tip. There's no point in actually creating the race to the bottom. Okay. And the reason that's doubly important now is that you don't have to be the lowest price to get the sale. Matter of fact, I noticed a sale that came through yesterday, and it was $25 above what was showing as the current buy box for me when I went and looked at the product. It was a higher priced product, something that was in the $200 range, or it was like 198 is what the buy box was for me when I looked at it. Our sale came through at like $223. So, make sure you're trying to push the price up whenever you do get the buy box. Make sure you're not lowering by a penny. And you could even use some of the built-in like profit booster default things that are in there. And then the biggest tip, in my opinion, is make sure that you're going through and setting your minimums and your maximums on your own. Okay. This is one of the things that, in my opinion, is probably the most important, because let's say that you set a 20% minimum ROI. Well, repricers are repricers. They're not people. Okay. They're not going to think like you or I would. So if I set a minimum ROI of 20% on my repricer and I just let it all automatically complete my minimums and maximums, if I sell something for a 20% ROI that I sourced at a 75% ROI, well, that's on me. Okay. That was my fault for not messing around with my repricer. So go in there, set your minimums, set your maximums, and then you can always change them around if necessary. Avery, do you add brands to IP Alert that don't file anything via Amazon but do have Voorhees send a letter? The answer here is rarely. All right. Voorhees, for the most part, are just letters to scare you. They don't really take people to court. Now, that is a little bit different, I think, with the ASICS brand. I can't remember if they're being represented by Voorhees or another law firm. But I know ASICS has taken like at least one seller to court. I don't know what over. Now, I will occasionally add a brand where a letter has been sent by the Rosenbaum firm, because it is known that if you do not pay attention to their letters, they will often escalate and they will get sellers reinstated. And then they'll happily take your money to get you reinstated from the suspension they caused as well. So take that for what it's worth. But typically the answer is no. We don't want to overly scare people away from brands. We only want to put brands in there where you could actually have account health troubles.
Yeah, there was a in the FBA Today school group. Somebody was talking about. I'm pretty sure it was Voorhees, and they actually got a secondary letter, and they used the wording on it was preparing for a possible lawsuit. Was their escalation phrase in the second letter, and that made me laugh because now don't take this as gospel, but from what I understood when I worked in mortgage servicing, we would have basically we'd have to send a letter, a notice of intent, right? And the intent was to foreclose, right? But we had to wait till it was 60 days delinquent, and there was no active efforts to get caught up, no repayment plan or anything like that. So, and the way I understood it from our legal counsel at the time was that you can't threaten a lawsuit unless you are willing to go through with it. You can't just it can't just be an empty threat in a legal perspective. So we had to have everything I's dotted, T's crossed, all that stuff with these letters, notices of intent to sue. But it was a very big deal because once we sent that, we had to follow through. So when I saw that, preparing for a possible lawsuit, it seemed like a soft way to kind of work around that legal requirement.
Interesting. That's interesting. Miguel, any interview with Eli is great to get pumped. I agree. Eli Glukowski is a great guest and good friend. Stephen, check out our podcast. We've got 1 or 2 interviews with Eli Glukowski. The latest one, which was just a few months ago, is top notch, in my opinion.
Yeah, and any fans of Eli, look out for his email that he just sent a day or two ago. His lead list, he's offering 25% off for life.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. So if you're looking to boost your sourcing or boost your databases, that's a great opportunity. His lead lists
Yeah.
are great.
Avery, couldn't you then toss ASINs from storefront stalking into a reverse search on tactical arbitrage? Yes, absolutely you can. So I'll tell you what. Now this requires another tool, okay? But one of the easiest ways to do this is if you've got seller or if you've got rev seller. I take rev seller and I open up the historical sellers on on rev seller, open those up into the Keepa product finder, and then I grab that API URL and I toss it into ASIN gadget, and it goes in and it scrapes all of the ASINs from that Keepa product finder search. You could also put in there is one way to also put in the seller IDs in ASIN gadget and grab them that way. There's a couple of different ways you could grab all those ASINs. But yeah, absolutely. Run those through reverse search on TA. Do it regularly, and you will be very pleased with the results.
Yep. I just did that before the show. I did my weekly Storefront Stalker Pro download and run it through TA. Yeah, it's nice. Even if you go through the stuff manually, I still run it through TA, just to have exposure to all of the stores that they have.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see here. Sarah, here's an interesting question. So Sarah says someone wants to invest in my Amazon business, so I can get going again. Do you have any tips for someone who has done this, and would you be willing to share their experience? So there's a lot of people who have done this. Absolutely. And typically it's in the form of a loan or something like that. It's not super often that it ends up to be a great experience on either side, to be quite frank. So my opinion would be you probably need to make sure that uh, there's some very clear guidelines as to sorry, 1 second here. All right. Luke, you are now a moderator on the YouTube channel. So if you share links, it should not delete them now. So there should be some very clear guidelines if you're going to allow someone to invest in your business. What what is the consideration, or what is the money being uh, invested or shared? What does the repayment schedule look like? Is it equity? Is it a flat percentage? Is it a regular loan that's going to have an amortization schedule? What does the payback period look like? What percentage of profits do they want, or is it just you owe me this much at this time? Like, that all needs to be laid out very clearly, because people tend to forget, especially if something happens in their life and all of a sudden they need money, and the person with the business is the person who looks to be the most liquid when it comes to getting their money back. So I would suggest you're being very, very careful, especially in today's Amazon atmosphere. Outside of that, I would also make sure that it is very clear what their role is. Oftentimes, when people invest, uh, especially in small businesses, oh yeah, hey, I want to be a silent partner. Let me give you a couple $1,000, and you pay me back this time, that time. Well, all of a sudden, they're stopping by and they're making suggestions about how you can run your business better when they've never done it. And you're not necessarily looking for that. In my opinion, that's probably the most important things that you could do in this kind of situation. If this is your only option, if you don't have the option to use your own capital, your own credit, or anything like that, uh, in my opinion, it would be best not to take their money, especially if they're family. But again, I don't know the entire situation.
Capital's kind of tricky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember in kindergarten, I had a crush on a girl, and like a really big time crush, right? And in kindergarten, I asked her, like, hold my hand. I might have asked her to kiss me or something like that, and she had the nerve to say yes. And I didn't know what the hell to do, and that's kind of how I look at capital. It's kind of like the crush that you're not prepared to deal with if you actually get, right? Because I remember when I first started, I don't know if maybe it just kind of reached my radar or something, or maybe it really was like an increase in the amount of lending that was being done. But you reach a certain point as a new seller to where you start getting these lending offers, and it's like, okay, Amazon's willing to send you this. And I remember the advice that stuck with me when I first started getting offers was that if you take the Amazon loan, and I know it's a third party, I know Amazon doesn't lend themselves, but or whatever lender it is, but if you decide to take the money, you need to be sure to spend it all as fast as possible, right? And there's a couple different layers of reasoning behind that. It's because of with the Amazon lending, it's because they're going to take repayment out of the disbursements, so you need to make sure it's invested in inventory, and that inventory is now bringing in revenue so that you have the money to pay it back. And then you also have the excess money outside of the payment that you have to make to pay for the rest of your overhead, right? Because there's more than just this loan. So, the way I ended up kind of organizing all this in my head is if you're going to seriously look at an infusion of capital in your business, you need to 100% be committed to a bias towards action, right? And sometimes, if you think about it, depending on what cost, this capital infusion is going to cost you, uh, there are certain scenarios where the bias towards action, where if you implement it, it's probably better that you don't take the capital, because if you can get your mind right and just decide that you're going to take action and take it consistently and go full bore, a lot of times it could solve your own capital problems. And if you can solve your own capital problems by a bias towards action, uh, you're now dictating the terms of the capital that action is bringing back in for you, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's the main reason that I decided to go with a line of credit through the SBA, the Small Business Administration, as opposed to a loan, because I wanted the flexibility to have access to the capital, but I would have access on my terms. And it was interest only payments, whatever I took out, so I could kind of dictate the pace, because I was at somebody else's mercy if I took a loan, because it was a fixed term, and payments would be fixed until, and they go until it's fully amortized, unless there's a balloon clause or something like that, so that's somebody else's terms, and I didn't really like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's tricky, Capital. It's everyone's biggest problems, but it's far more nuanced than simply tapping into a resource for it most of the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yep. And so I'm going to, before we go and answer some other questions, I'm going to answer Sarah's follow up here. Do you think it indicates anything important that as she approached me with an offer instead of me approaching her with a request? Uh, I'm going to be quite frank. That would actually turn me off more. Like I actually want to go beg for money. If someone is coming to me because they know of something I can do, chances are they're looking for some sort of payout on a skill that they don't have, or thinking that, oh, well, this will just be easy money because they already know how to do this and I won't have to do anything. And I would imagine that that kind of person will tend to want to have their hands in the business a bit more. So, to be frank, what I would probably do if I were in your situation, I don't know, the exact details, but if capital is an issue, I would go and I would create capital of my own, like Chris was talking about. Maybe you can't get a loan, maybe you can't get credit or anything like that, but there are inexpensive ways. Like go on Facebook Marketplace, get stuff that's free, take better pictures, sell it on Facebook Marketplace for money. Go to book sales, buy books, send them in, get them sold. Like books are still cheap. You can put up ads all over the place that you will go pick up books for free. Like, people still give away old books for free. Sell the ones you can on Amazon, take the rest of them over to Half Price Books or some other used bookstore where maybe they only buy them for 10 cents a book, but they will give you something for them. And that will compound into enough to get started. Peyton. Peyton's got over 100 units dating back 180 days. However, only a couple units per individual invoice and can only submit 10 invoices into the selling application. Been trying to combine PDFs, but no luck on gating yet. So, Peyton, my suggestion would be is actually, and I know you're going to hear this opinion back and forth. My opinion, though, is going to be merge all of them into one file, uh, and then merge your shipping confirmation and your delivery confirmation all into the same file. Put it all together. In between the on the front of it, put a cover page. Here's what you're getting. Okay. You're getting invoices. You're getting, and you can knock it down by ASIN if you want. You're getting shipping confirmation. You're getting delivery confirmation. And then right before they get to the shipping confirmation, put in another cover page. Here's all the shipping confirmations. Same for the delivery. Like, make it super easy to read in one file and then send that in.
What did you end up using as far as combining PDFs?
I think either mergepdf.com or smallpdf.com.
Yeah, I think small PDF is what I ended up using.
Yeah, which reminds me, I need to go cancel the $12 a month charge. I don't need the pro account. Miguel, where can I find Eli's newsletter? So Eli doesn't send out like a full-fledged newsletter, but you can go to oaleadspro.com and you can get signed up for when he does email openings to his lead list. Yeah, Luke, this is a no-go for all the time. I get this question. I get pictures texted to me all the time from garage sales. Hey, what is this beat up Barbie doll from 1952? What's that worth? Like, I'm just this a walking encyclopedia of the value of every product that's out there. And when I say, do you know how to look up things on eBay, as the answer, people are like, oh, well, I thought you sold stuff on the internet. Like, like that diss is going to get me to do the work for them.
And yeah, the key point is the margins, the expected margins that these people think they have. Like you guys just don't get the concept. It's like, if it's old Amazon stuff, I'm just getting what I can. The numbers are not pretty, and yeah, it's what people think stuff is worth is a whole show in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like, well, I paid, I have this 22-year-old rusted Ford, but I just put a new transmission in it, so it's got to be worth X number. It's like, no, you just brought it back up to what, you just brought it back up to the $900 that it was worth because it wasn't with a bad transmission. It's like, you don't get to add on the cost that you put, the cost of the transmission that you put in.
All right. I don't know that I see any other questions here. DJ, Chris and Chris are the best daily advice out there. Thanks for being there for the Amazon community. I really appreciate that, man. That's very, very kind of you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, the amount of people babies. that beanie. I still get that question. I got a Princess Diana beanie baby that's still in the box. Like, I heard you can sell this for like $32,000. Like, am I rich? I'm like, no, you're not rich. You're not rich.
Chris, do you remember? I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but I asked you about some beanie babies, and actually, I got a new shelving unit, so I can actually see them right over the corner of my monitor over here. Do you remember the McDonald's beanie babies that came on a card? And
yeah,
they were like different countries around the world, and the listings claim that it's something to do with the city in Illinois that's listed on the back. It's like Oak Brook, Illinois, or something like that, and it's like, on some of the runs, Oak Brook was one word, and then some of the runs, Oak Brook was two different words. And apparently, one of those versions makes something unique, or makes it an error, and people try to get hundreds of dollars for it. I still haven't. They're still sitting right. I still haven't. I can't bring myself to list it at the price. I don't know what to price it at. I can't. My conscience won't let me go to the upper echelon of what some people apparently are willing to pay.
Right. Do it in an auction format and let the market speak.
That's yeah, that's a good idea. I haven't seriously done the research in a very long time. I kind of just put it away, and I decided I don't have the bandwidth for this, to make this kind of decision. But yeah, I'll have to take a look and see if there are more solds than listings. That's typically my rule for doing an
Hmm.
auction.
Oh, that's a good
So
idea. I like that.
yeah.
John, you guys think Amazon would go to live selling like Whatnot and eBay has in beta? That already exists. You can do live selling on Amazon. Nobody watches it. Occasionally, I will stumble upon it. Um, it'll be someone. Here, actually, let me see if I can find one right now. Amazon live selling. Yeah, there's this idiot right now who's live on Amazon. He's wearing a big orange um, hairpiece and a lab coat, and he's off to the side. And then he on his main screen, someone is recording his Roomba. Like it's dumb. Um, it's horrible. But yeah, if you go to amazon.com/live, you can watch a lot of this garbage.
Like it's like old fashioned public access television, right? I was
Yeah,
watching kept hearing this noise in the kitchen, and my wife was watching a Facebook live shopping, and this person, and then I looked and I saw, and she was one of three viewers, and like what kind of hosting abilities do you have to try to keep the attention of three whole people, while you're trying to sell your wares.
right.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
There's I mean, maybe there's a reason, why public broadcast television didn't do so. Like maybe not everybody needs access to to the public. Uh,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, Wayne's World. Right, Jeremy. Yeah, that was
exactly.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know what it takes to go live on Amazon. I've never looked into it. Uh, I mean, the bar can't be that high. So,
Yeah.
all
And
right.
well, you know what? The easiest way that Amazon does that is making a push to actually buy TikTok, right?
Yes. Yeah, if that happens, honestly, that's good for us, in my
Mhm.
opinion. I mean, not that Amazon's ever going to come ask us, but honestly, they should change the whole TikTok affiliate so that only products on Amazon can actually be affiliate products. Um, and you want to talk about a growth engine, which like there's not a lot of levers that Amazon can pull right now to get more growth, like in the U.S. marketplace. But I think that's one of
Right.
them. You know,
Yeah. Although if they forced affiliates, that might be trouble long term. That may actually lead to more brands going first party, which
that
would be
is
bad
true.
for us.
Yeah, that is true. I make Luke a moderator, and then he takes his bad jokes to his kids. Uh, I might have to call CPS for child abuse on that. But speaking of bad jokes, Chris, this teenage cannibal, um, he goes through his training, and the last day he spends it with the king of the village, and he goes up to the king, and the king says, "Hey, you get three questions." The first question the teenager asks is, "What does an 80-year-old taste like?" Now the king thinks for a few seconds and then answers, "Depends."
I love the realistic setup though. Teenage cannibal finishing their training.
Right? All right. That's it for us, everybody. Rory McIlroy is solidly back in first place. Let's hope that he can hang on to this through the turn, and we see what is something that happens extremely rarely in one of the greatest sports to exist. We see him win this tournament. So that's it for today, everybody. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday at 5:30.